So I know usually the way I like to start these off is kind of asking a little bit of a fun question, kind of throw the curveball initially, right? So if you could choose your best friend, whether it's in real life or make believe, who would that be
Oh
and
man,
why?
and why? I've got a I've got a great group of college buddies who I spent some time together. We were part of us were in high school and in college together, and we're a pretty tight knit group. But we've got, there's probably six or seven of us in our group that that stay in contact with each other pretty regularly. A lot of times just through text, right? Our lives are going different directions, and we've all got kids, and lots of juggling, lots of things at the same time. So we don't stay in touch as much as we would like to, but it's probably that group of friends that that we're close to. We just all we can all relate to each other. We can all joke with each other. We can all I think most importantly we even if we haven't seen each other for a couple years, we can get together, whether it be on the phone, over text, or in person, and it's like we just saw each other yesterday. So I think it's
Yeah,
probably that group of guys.
yeah, for sure. Now, if you don't mind me asking, where'd y'all go to college?
Went to Elon College in
Okay.
North Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So how about maybe 20 minutes, maybe a little more towards 30, 40 minutes down the road from Elon.
Oh, no
And
kidding. Wait, where are you located?
if you heard of Jamestown, which
Okay.
is kind of
Yeah.
on kind of the High Point, Greensboro, pretty much right in that little neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then for college, for undergrad and grad school, I went to High Point University. So
Okay. Yeah. I
yeah,
looked at High Point when I was looking at schools. It's a certainly a nice campus. I spent a lot of time in Raleigh and Greensboro and Chapel Hill and Durham when I was in college. Not as much in High Point, but I love that area.
yeah, we're very fond of Elon with everything they've done on campus, and especially over the last several years in terms of kind of their steady growth and all that. So
Yeah.
so yeah, and plus that football. That's you can't really
Yeah.
beat that either, right?
Yeah. That's
And of
right.
course that's something that High Point still hasn't had for quite a while. So sweet, but that's great to hear for sure. And and kind of the question, right? Having that little group, it's huge. And so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with that, I always kind of like starting off with that, and so then to kind of transition into, stuff with the Salem Red Sox. How'd you get here? How'd you get to lead such a great organization and being affiliated with, of course, with the Red Sox kind of overall?
Yeah, so I started working here when I was in high school and college. I'm from this area, and I worked in a game day capacity, just kind of doing whatever they needed me to do when I was in high school and college, whether it be an usher, concession stand, working the speed pitch, helping clean up the stadium, kind of whatever was needed to be done. Um, I was willing to do and did it. And then after college, when I graduated college, I worked for a marketing firm in Raleigh, North Carolina for a very short time before my dad called me and said, "Hey, they've got this job fair at the baseball winter meetings. And if you ever want to get into baseball, this might be a good path." And I really didn't know too much about that then, but he educated me a little bit, and he and I drove to Boston that year because that's where the winter meetings were, unrelated to us being a Red Sox affiliate. That's where the winter meetings were, and I attended the job fair, which pretty much hosted every minor league and major league baseball team in the country, looking for jobs in baseball, and got a few offers, but decided that coming back home was the best option for me, and I got an opportunity to do so as an intern. So in 2002, I was an intern here. We were the Salem Avalanche at the time, a Colorado Rockies affiliate. And after my internship, they didn't have a job for me, so I went and worked. It used to be the NBDL. Now it's the G League of the NBA. We had a team here in town, and I went and worked for them for a very short time. Somebody here at the baseball team left, And so that opened the door for me. And they invited me back here. And I've been here ever since. So I've just kind of really worked my way up the ladder. I've done just about everything there is to do here at the ballpark. Um, and in 2019 I became the interim GM, and then in 2020 or after the 2019 season that interim was removed. So my first full season as GM was in 2020. That didn't go so well because of COVID,
Right.
but after that it's gone pretty well.
Awesome, for sure. And so, out of that whole entire experience, right, especially within the last few years, within the GM role and your current role, right, what's been your favorite experience out of it all?
It's probably just working with our staff day in and day out. You're always trying to build the perfect staff, and I think it drives you nuts trying to strive for perfection, right? And I think gradually over time, we've kind of learned what we need and maybe what we don't need in terms of skill sets within our personnel, and we've got just a great staff now, and I couldn't be more excited for the people that we have here, and just the ability to work with them day in and day out, the ability to come to a baseball stadium and go to work each day. It gets me excited, and people ask me how long I'm going to do this, and I'm gonna do it as long as I love it, and I love it every day. There's not too many days. I don't want to say there's not any, but there's not too many days where I wake up and I'm not incredibly excited to come to work.
Right, and even to that point as well, there's always going to be like at least a moment or two where it's going to be difficult, right? And especially like you said, back in 2020 where you might have played for a tiny bit and then so many teams, couldn't play because of what happened with the pandemic and everything. So how do you all, maybe navigate, let's say, the rainy day, right? What does that tend to look like for you?
Yeah, the beauty of baseball, especially during the season, is every day is different. And dealing with the weather is just one of those things that we have to deal with, unfortunately. And my approach as the GM in working with both managers, we always try and get the game in. I feel like it's my job, and the job of our groundskeeper to try and get the game in, because we owe it to the teams to try and play the game, but we also owe it to the fans, because every night there's somebody that might be coming out here for the first time, and if we don't play that game that night, then maybe we never get that fan here. So we always try and play the game. Some nights are that's easier said than done. But we certainly don't always accomplish that, and we call it if we need to. But we're always trying to get the game in. So, but that's the kind of our approach. Is every day here is opening day, and by that we mean somebody's probably coming out for the first time to that particular game. Even if it's the last game of the season, it's probably still somebody's first game that they've been to. So we want to put on a good show every day, and that's kind of the approach that we take.
Yeah, for sure. And especially within baseball, community is so important with every single aspect of it, right? And so yeah, how are you all involved with the community? And especially with the fans, getting fans in the door. How do y'all engage with trying to get fans in the door and engage with the community?
Yeah, I mean, we see ourselves as a cornerstone of this community, and we feel like we play an important role throughout the community, and that can be done one of many ways. I mean, we certainly donate a lot of tickets and swag to nonprofits throughout the area for charity auctions and whatnot. We take our mascot to the Children's Hospital and various places throughout the community. But a lot of times we bring people here, and we just did something this past weekend for a child, a high school kid that has suffered from cancer, and lost his leg and has a prosthetic leg now, was able to come out and really, he told me that this was one of the best nights he's had in a long time. And it's,
Nice.
I tell our staff, and sometimes I need to tell myself that we take this place for granted. This is where we work, this is what we do. But this can be a pretty special place for some people, and we need to treat it as such. And you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to bring somebody out, and we're always looking to do that. You know, we play baseball here, and baseball, you know, we're not, you know, we're not saving lives here. But we feel like that we can create memories, we can change people's lives if we do it the right way. And that's you know, being a part of that and having the opportunity to do that, having the platform to be able to do that is incredibly important to us.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. I definitely appreciate it. And so, kind of, tying in the whole kind of college component again, like we were talking about a tiny bit ago, for students, going into college, getting maybe like let's say, a sport management degree, some sort of business degree, but either way, whatever degree they're getting interested in sports, what would you recommend to them kind of initially, gaining an interest in the sports industry and then eventually kind of getting into it, maybe towards graduation or getting an internship?
Yeah, you know, I still think the hardest part of doing it is just getting your foot in the door, and it's you know, just like anything, it's who you know. You know, we're not doing anything incredibly difficult here, and you know, anybody can do what we do day in and day out. The tough part is just getting your foot in the door, because at the end of the day, you know, if you want to work in baseball, there's 120 affiliated minor league baseball teams throughout the country. There's 30 major league teams, and you know, there's in our market, for example, we've got our team, and we've got a minor league hockey team. So in the entire market here, you know, 150,000 plus, there's about 20 full-time jobs available in this market. And if you want to work in sports and you're not one of those 20, well, now you have to go somewhere else, right? And the closest place is probably in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is about an hour away, and they've got maybe 7 or 8 or 9 employees. And then if they don't have a job, well, now the next closest place is probably like Greensboro or Winston-Salem, and those are in different states. So you have to getting your foot in the door is hard. You know, you have to be willing to relocate oftentimes, which is why this is not in my case, but in a lot of cases, a very young person's industry, because they're not quite settled down. They are more willing to relocate. And then once you get established, once you get that foot in the door, then you can, you know, kind of pick and choose, you know, maybe where you go and what teams you go to and get closer to home.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you. And then, as my kind of final question for today, I know we've talked about it a tiny bit not too long ago, but to really kind of bring it full circle, the great thing about baseball overall and in general is that it means so many different things to so many different people, right? And so, um, last but not least, what does baseball mean to you?
Um, you know, again, I think the community is certainly an important part. You know, I tell people that, you know, we're pretty fortunate that we work in an industry where, in theory, everybody that comes out to the ballpark has had a pretty good day. And the ability to entertain people through, you know, through baseball being that platform, and you know, that's what we strive to do, and we want to keep all those people in a good mood and having a good day. You know, it's again, if you work at you know, a grocery store, or a restaurant, or a gas station or something, people go to work, they have a really bad day, but they still need to eat. They still need to get gas. They still need to go to the grocery store. They still need to maybe go shopping and purchase something. But in our case, they're probably not coming to a baseball game if they've had a really bad day. So you know, we're fortunate that we get to do that, and you know, hopefully we can keep them headed down that path of having a really good day, and hopefully make it even better, right? But that's what we do. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's family friendly. I love seeing all the families and all the kids come out here and have a good time. You know, one of the things I'm most proud of is that we've got season ticket holders that don't like baseball. You know, but what they do like is they like to be entertained. They love it when it's 75 degrees with a slight breeze, and they can come out here and sit in the stands and have a beer and a hot dog and just people watch. And the fact that they're willing to spend their dollars, they're here at the ballpark with us to do that is you know, I think a feather in our cap, and it's one of the things that I'm most proud of.